During the summer of 2019, I was heavily involved with marketing and networking, trying to get my startup off the ground, rumor resume, as a sole operator. During those daily functions and networking activities, I met and came across a gentleman by the name of Charles Johnson. He was so impressed, he ended up introducing me to one of his best friends named Mike Starr, who happens to be a very well-known and famous actor in Hollywood. Mike ended up inviting me to his house for the interview that I filmed. We ended up walking down to his favorite cafe, though, to make the atmosphere a little bit more inviting and warm for him. Mike has been in countless movies since the 70s, including The Bodyguard, Dumb and Dumber, The Black Dahlia, and Billy Bathgate. Enjoy.
And by the way, I also want to throw a shout out to Rick Saunders. He's out here filming us. He said his 137 is what he needs people to sign up every day.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Renting Ranting Quarters. I'm your host and pilot on this fantastic voyage through the purple and blue skies, and today, ladies and gentlemen, we have a very special guest who's flying alongside us as our co-pilot on this fantastic journey. I don't even know where to begin to highlight who he is, but he's a very special guest. He's very busy, he's very famous, very well known in Hollywood. In fact, he's a veteran, so much so that he's been working since '78, 4 decades worth of Hollywood action. He's been in hundreds of films, hundreds of TV shows, but above and beyond that, that's not the reason why I invited him to do the podcast. Is because he's a family guy, he's a humanitarian, he does a lot of charity work, and you know, he's just a straight cool dude, and he happens to be from New York. So, ladies and gentlemen, say hi to our very, very special guest, Mike Starr. Mike, say what up.
Hello out there.
I love it. So,
oh, wow.
Yes, everybody, I'm sure you know Mike Starr from
everything.
Right, all the famous movies he's been in. I mean, I can go on and on. I mean, of course, I'll start with the most everybody knows you from, right? I mean, I know you from other things, but everybody's like, oh, Dumb and Dumber, Dumb and Dumber. So obviously, cool. You're the main dude from Dumb and Dumber. We love that. But for me, as I spoke about to you earlier, the fact that when I was looking at your filmography, right, and you were actually on the Tracy Ullman show.
Yeah,
right?
that was a great experience.
That was really, really
Sam
awesome.
McMurray, who was on the show, got me on that. I was out doing a play, Malcolm McDowell and Susie Kurtz. Oh God, this is terrible. I wasn't prepared for one thing.
Oh, it's okay.
No, I know they call it senior moments, but famous film director, directed Little Big Men. He was directing the play in New York. And then I got a call, and my agent was just starting to branch, and I was one of the last holdouts in New York, especially because my kids were there, and my wife was just starting to go to med school, I think. So I stayed east. My brother went out west, but I stayed east, and finally my agent said, "Oh, well, you know, they want you to do this play." And Arthur, oh God, it's terrible. We'll look up the name.
It's my fault, people.
Oh, I should have been better prepared.
I'm it's sorry. Okay. This is authenticity, my friend.
He called me and said, "Well, I met him. So you should have been in a New York show. Would you like to do the LA?" So it was a way for me to get my feet wet in LA and make money. And what happened was, it's different. New York was different in those days. The business was different, like anything else is different. But what was interesting in those days, before the I give John Hughes credit for making younger people work. But the crazy thing is, I was in my late 20s, early 30s, and they'd say, "Oh, you're perfect for the detective, but you're so young." I remember a Miller beer commercial. We were iron workers, and I did extra work on it. The people thought I was a real iron worker, but everyone that was beer commercials were all at 40-year-olds in those. Everyone seemed 40. All the mobsters, the cops, everything.
Totally.
And so, I did a lot of theater, but it was funny. I went out there, and there'd be like one game in town. So you did commercials or theater in New York, but maybe a big film would come in, and you got a chance to. You see, if you watch films of those times, you see a lot of people who did a lot of work in New York. It's like kind of watching all the Law and Orders. You see people. Oh yeah,
That's right.
she was great.
Totally.
I did a play with her or whatever.
Yep.
And he's just wonderful. And you watch films, great classic films from that time in the 70s, and you see people coming in playing the desk sergeant or the landlord, the super in the building, and he walks out.
Yeah.
And they wanted a flavor of New York, and they made sure to show everything, like the way. If you remember the movie Dog Day Afternoon, the way that works out, they would show
Al
streets.
Pacino.
Yeah,
I think that's one of his best.
It's classic.
Yes,
yeah,
I love
classic.
that movie.
John Casale.
Yes.
And so anyway, the weird thing was when they used the expression "kid in the candy store," or what's that old song, "One-eyed cat in a seafood store." All of a sudden, I'm out there, and it's in the play opens. Great people, Vince Gabelli, so many great people. And Malcolm, I wound up working with again, and Susie Kurtz, and all of a sudden, the show goes up, and you have the days available. And my agency, who I was with at the time, they wound up opening in L.A. And God, I mean, not only commercial, but mainly, I had never been on these lots, Paramount. And you go on a lot, and there's cheers. And they're all working. Hey, say hello. Hey, meet George Wendt.
Yes.
But then the Tracy Ullman show, my friend Sam McMurray was on. He never took credit for it, but I wound up doing a couple of them. And she was just phenomenally talented, the hardest work. And I remember I finally was going home for Christmas, and I lucked out for a while on shows where I would be there when they were giving out gifts, so I would get jackets as if I was a regular,
Nice.
mooching all these gifts. But I remember what Tracy Ullman did one time. I said, my kids love you, this and that. It was part of what we were talking about. We were talking about how it was a ritual. My wife was in med school at the time, and I would be with the kids. And Sunday nights, if my wife wasn't getting back to something, there was a whole ritual I had watching with the so-called nanny or sitter in the Bronx. We needed someone if one of us wasn't there. Someone legal to
Definitely.
look out
Yep.
from all over the world. But we would watch various shows like that, like Get a Life, which I have a story about I got to tell you. And
Chris Elliott, ladies and gentlemen.
Yes, and Tracy Ullman,
Yes.
who I wound up working with the producers of that, who were with Tim Burton. So that's a funny story.
Love Tim Burton.
But on Cabin Boy, that's a story I got to tell.
Oh, yes.
So anyway, we would be on these sets, and I couldn't believe it. So Sam gets me on the Tracy Ullman show, and I go back. They bring me back to do this really funny stuff. She was so brilliant, and we were having so much fun. And I mentioned how much my kids liked her, and this and that, and their friends, and
Sure.
my friends' kids, So she would have to change in all these outfits and do all this crazy stuff, as you remember on the show.
Oh yeah.
So phenomenally.
Totally.
And she researched everything.
Yeah.
She'd ask, well, how do they speak here in this part of the country? She'd ask me things like that, and she was just tremendous. So anyway, she would run back out, change some outrageous outfit, and come back, go home, and do that at the end.
Yeah,
remember?
Totally.
Well, I was getting ready to go back to Christmas, and I said to her, Tracy, thanks for everything. She goes, wait, you come in bad accent, but she goes, wait, come back here, Mike. She goes, I'm doing it poorly, thinking of a friend of mine. But she said, come back here. Didn't you want pictures for the kids? And she gave me all this stuff. She took all this time.
Cool.
She had about 30 seconds to breathe, and she did it all. But this is a story I like to tell. So I'm on the set one day. I think it was one I think I was playing the captain of a pirate ship, and she was playing a teeth all back then. She was an old rock singer, and it was really funny. And we were a pirate radio ship, I should explain,
Nice.
a music ship.
Nice.
And me and her, they make like she said somewhere, we're gonna bump now or boink now, I forget what it was. So anyway, I'm sitting there one day, and they were waiting for some of the people. And of course, Dan Castellaneta is a great guy out of Chicago.
Yes.
Chicago with all these talented people,
For sure.
the second set, Mike Haggerty and Brian Doyle, and all the Murrays and everything. Well, Dan, he was one of the rep group, right? So he comes in, goes, I'm sorry I'm late. Like, I give a rat's ass. You know, I'm sitting there, why are you telling me? Who am I to say anything? I'm one of the, one of the ranch hands here.
Yeah.
So he says, did you ever hear about Matt Groening? I said, you know what's crazy? I think I'm saying his name right. I said, we have this this lady from Spokane who's an artist, and she watches the kids, and she's really great, very talented, and she gave me this book. Really? I said, you ever hear of The Simpsons? And I said, yeah, actually the paper, The Village Voice, which was a different, more, seemed like a more upstanding paper at the time, not that I'm judging, I don't know what it's like now, but it kind of got a little wacky, but it was really, at one time, seemed like a solid paper, and they had the Matt Groening, and they had The Simpsons, I think, or just Matt Groening. I said, yeah. He goes, well, we're doing this 5-minute cartoon.
That's right.
So we're doing a 5-minute cartoon,
in the half,
and I get to play this guy Homer Simpson.
Yes.
I love telling people that, because that's got to
so
be like
rad.
1987 or something,
Yeah. That is such a great story, my friend. To speak about that kind of process on Sundays, I already told you this, but our process, Tracy Ullman Show, I know this was back in the day, but it was massively popular. And in fact, we watched 60 Minutes, my mom would cook, my dad loved nachos. We would have this process, and then when Tracy Ullman came on, it was like the best treat of the whole week. The Simpsons came on, I think, like halfway through the show, right? They had
I can't remember.
Yeah, they weren't like the biggest part.
Yeah, no.
They were just like a little skit. It was like halfway through. And then they would go back to the Tracy Ullman Show, and then The Simpsons became so big because everybody kept saying we want more of that 5-minute skit or whatever it was.
And Jim Brooks was who directed, like, I think, what was it? The broadcasting, so many things, was the head producer of all of them. And he was phenomenal.
So so obviously we know that you're a Hollywood guy. We all know who you are.
I'm Hollywood. I'm more of a New York guy.
There you go. So
I tell people Chicago. I'm adopted Chicago.
I love that. Well, actually, speaking of Chicago, shout out to Charles Johnson. Thank you, my friend.
Charles, my partner.
Cheers.
We're going to make big movies together.
Yes, shout out to Charles Johnson, because Charles Johnson
brains.
is the one who actually introduced us to you. He's the glue, right?
Yeah.
So I did an interview with him. He's from Chi-Town. So Charles, thank you very much, my friend. I really appreciate it. I almost was in tears when he told me that you had given me this as a gift. So thank you, Charles, and of course, thank you, Mike Starr, as well. But going back to, obviously we can go into the Hollywood thing, but I want to get more granular with you as a human being. So at what point, obviously you're from New York, right?
Yeah.
So at what point growing up in New York did you say, you know what, I want to be an actor?
That's a good question. That's probably going to be one of the Mike Starr patented long answers.
Bring it.
There was feelings about it. I remember I didn't get cast in the second grade play. I think they made me the curtain puller. Then I went to a Catholic grammar school, and they make me one of the wise men. And my brother, Bo Starr, who was a pro football player,
nice.
He made my gift of one of the wise men at the manger or something like that. But they wrapped the shoebox and I wore my father's robe, and that was my big break. Nothing happened, and every time there were talent contests, I just didn't get a shot.
But you still tried.
So a little bit, yeah. And I remember I had this daydreaming imagination, I'd say, and I think I wanted to make them more than I wanted to act in them. And then we lived in this great neighborhood, this working class neighborhood. There were two projects. Queens was like almost, this project was built in '53. So I had 3 older brothers, and what they did was the electricians union, really forward-thinking union,
yes.
Local 3, they built their own project, which was great. And then the city built this project, and it was actually a documentary done on it. And I did some stuff in another documentary called New York Street Games, where they had everyone from C. Everett Koop, I think Whoopi Goldberg, all different people were talking about how growing up in a neighborhood, inventing the games like stickball or bouncing, box ball. And so anyway, what happened was Joe Papp did this great thing with, he founded the New York Shakespeare Festival. So, and eventually I got to work in a show. It wasn't Shakespeare, it was down there. Some really interesting people I worked with. It was the hottest show. I had small parts in it. And that I'll tell you too.
Yeah.
But the New York Shakespeare Festival every year is in Central Park. It's a big thing, hot ticket. People want to go to it, and
no doubt.
I found myself. Someone said, "Oh, there's a big poster there." I found myself looking at this poster, and what they did was they bring it to the projects. I remember the city, the New York Times did a thing about how someone might throw a bottle of this or that in, but we had we had this. I mean, this neighborhood was like every type of person on it integrated. We were considered like a model neighborhood to other projects, because I coach kids. People would come and visit and said, "How does this work so well? Everyone seems to get along." So it was really a classic place. It's considered neutral ground for a lot of people, right? So anyway, they come in, and who do I get to see? I got to tell years later on my first job in Japan, my first film job, James Earl Jones.
Oh,
doing
wow.
Shakespeare, right?
Darth Vader.
Yeah, that's funny. See him as Darth Vader. But a few years later at Hofstra, when I got in the drama department, they had a great program, and we saw so many people. Maggie Smith. I saw James Earl Jones do Great White Hope on
No way.
on Broadway. Yeah.
Wow.
So we got Billy Joel in the background, Piano Man from Long Island.
Nice. That's right. That's right. That's right. That's right. That's right. Yes, that's right.
We don't have to pay any rates. So
I know. I was going to say.
I with him once.
Right?
My friends Chuck Zito and Johnny C introduced me to him, and he's a great guy. But he was from Long Island, playing audition nights way back when in the early 70s.
Yeah.
$15 a night if he was lucky, whatever. Places. Some of the places I got to work in, he had been at.
Very
where
cool.
I'd worked like waiter, or I was good enough to be a bartender, but a couple of my brothers did that.
Yeah.
But so. Anyway, they come around to the neighborhoods. I'm sorry to speak in circles, but this is the way I am.
Let's go. I'm right there with you.
My friend Brian Rose, Captain Cranky, this genius professor who coaches me and acting and dialects and everything. We went to Hofstra together, and we still stay in touch. And I'll tell a story like this. He goes, "Whoa, that was a long walk for a warm drink of water." So anyway, people like Roscoe Lee Brown. I don't know if you know that.
No,
he was in John Wayne movie, but he did so much, and he had this voice, and I don't know if I can tell this story.
Let's hear it.
Oh God, talk about politically incorrect. Someone came up to him at a bar. I got to finally meet him and tell him he was one of my first influences in acting.
Very cool.
And he used to stay at this place, where my friend Ten's bar, the Smokehouse, I think it was, and a few other cool places in that area where a lot of people in the industry stay, and tourists and whatnot will come in because it's got this whole history. And someone came up and thought he was in Predator, who was Bill Dukes, who directed me and my brother in Hoodlum, right?
Oh, yeah.
He doesn't look anything like Bill Dukes. And this white guy came up to him and said, "Oh, you were in Predator. I loved you in Predator." And Roscoe had this very theatrical way of speaking. Roscoe looks over, because, "No, my good man, you must be thinking of the other Schwarzenegger." So I'm sorry, is that all right for me to tell that? Am I
I
going to
love
get
it. No, we're you on YouTube. We're good, man. You can cuss, you can
But
do
he
whatever you
did
want.
that, and my friend Gary just collapsed laughing, and he does it with a straight face. So I got to meet him.
That's pretty cool.
But I don't know if you know who Cleavon Little is. Did you ever see Blazing Saddles?
Of course.
Well, he's
I love that
African-American
movie.
Well,
a little racist
Cleavon-
at times, but I love the movie.
Well,
Just-
Cleavon, they got everybody in
Right,
that, right?
exactly,
But
exactly.
Cleavon Little did a rock Hamlet, and it was to bring Hamlet to younger people to get it. So he'd walk through and say soliloquies while he's got a camera, like he's photographing people, and then he'd lean over and say, "You ever see Hamlet?" So I went out to the Good Humor truck at the end of it, and he gave me advice about the business.
Nice.
So I was like 15 or 16. I said, I don't know. And I had been active in the neighborhood and coached kids, and I liked acting, but I also found myself interested in political science and this and that, and maybe could do good and be a, do Congress or a councilman, And
this is why you're 15?
Interested. So I'm about 16,
Yeah.
17. And then we didn't have any theater program at this high school I had in Bayside. We tried to start our own, and I think they thought this guy was a communist. So I don't know why they wouldn't let him. He was an extreme, interesting man. It's funny about Catholic educational life, especially with the Jesuits. you have people that are on extremes on both sides. It's interesting, you know. Like I met one of the Berrigan brothers, and a friend of mine did time with one of in the Federal with Philip Berrigan, and another friend told me he was up in Connecticut. But they were very impressive people, activists. Some people may not agree with their politics, but they were legit, dedicated people. So anyway, this guy, and I don't think he ever espoused it. He just was a real artist, you know, and very unique. And we wound up doing like readings of Man for All Seasons. We were trying anything, and they shut us down eventually. I don't know why. I don't want to blame anyone, but so we tried to do our own thing. And then the next year, I got it at. They thought I had a disability when I was 9 or 10 years old. I had rheumatic fever and serious hallucination and crazy stuff, you know. And they thought there was a big polio scare at the time, of course, and a little earlier than that. But I was having all these issues, so all of a sudden, I was banned from any sports. So I had to do it on my own in the streets, and I went to this school just to play football, actually, and follow my brother's footsteps. But I couldn't get cleared. I was eventually cleared at Elmhurst General. My mother was a clerk, and Dr. Lichstein, who was an Air Force cadet, said, "There's nothing wrong with you." And it's crazy. So I got to walk on and play football. Dude. So in the meantime, I go to school, and I said, "All right, I'm at." Someone said, "You know, you're always fooling around in class. Would you do me a favor and host a pep rally?"
Yeah.
I don't know if this is all boring or is, but so I said, "Sure." So imagine it's like 1966, 65, I can't remember. And I don't know if anyone would get this at all, but I did a Jack Benny impersonation, who was an old classic. Yeah.
The black and white?
Yeah, I had the glasses. I came out and
I
they played the band played the music. And I did this character, and you know how even Family Guy makes fun of it, how they make fun of the other school, your rivalry, you know.
That's right.
And we had an old city football team, but we also had guys who went to the NBA, and we were rival with schools like Malloy High School in Queens, and they had guys that I got to know later on, but guys who went on to North Carolina and went on to play or have shots in the NBA. So it was very intense rivalry, you know.
Yeah.
And one year they even beat out Power and all these schools, and they became number one in the city. So it was a lot of excitement. I used to don't know anything about basketball, but I would love going because I had some friends on the team, you know, that were in my class, and I got hooked on it. And other funny stories I'm thinking of. But so anyway, I did this, and this senior who got me involved said, "You know, I'm doing this show called." Always mix up Carousel with Carnival. I think it was Carousel. He said there's a small part, there's a scene, there's Dr. Glass who carries a bunny on stage, you know? And he's trying to talk to the girl, like, "Oh, you know, he's a goofy guy, like, oh, no, I own a horse, and, you know, a carriage with 6 horses, you know?" So, my brother comes to see me, and he's playing with the Jets at the time, and taxiing, playing, and he comes with his girlfriend. He sees me in it, and I remember I got a crazy memory. I'm standing on stage, and I had to try to, you know, woo one of the ladies and say, "No, I have a carriage, not the one with 1 horse, but the one with 6 horses." Right? And I go 6, and this is my first ad lib. I put my foot up to be a 6, and the whole place was hysterical. Right?
That's pretty cool, man.
So my brother says to me, "You're gonna be an actor." So, you know, now my oldest brother had been a Marine, and he was a New York cop, right? And the 2 things, I don't want to offend any Marines, police, but he said, 2 things you're not going to it's Marine or a cop. You know, they were thinking of me, you know, protected me. So it's not that he was anti-Marine or anti-police or anything like that. It's just he said, "No, I want, you know," especially at that height, and my brother Jimmy was in Vietnam, in '68 and this and that. He came back for another 50 years. But he was always pushing me to act. But my brother, who goes under the name Bo Starr, Bill was named Bill at the time, but there was a Bill in the Union. So you see him. We did Hoodlums together. Did so many things. He did brilliant stuff in Born on the 4th of July, who I actually knew, Ron Kovic. Yeah, my brother's great.
Yes.
So he was always pushing me. He was like my stage mother. My father was cool. It wasn't any of this, "What kind of silly business is that?" My mother was the one that kept giving me, it's almost like a Seinfeld bit, she kept giving me civil service papers because she came from Irish Catholic background, you know, and they came here. Oh my God, you get a pair of shoes and you get a uniform. Oh, let me say goodbye to these nice people.
Please, it's all good.
Bye, guys. Fantastic. Nice talking to you. Hope to see you again. I'm Mike, by the way.
Yeah, James.
Hey, James, I'm Rick. Nice to meet you guys. Thank you. Drive safe. Have a great day.
Hey, you ever see me here again? I want to introduce you to my wife or anyone else. We'll have some laughs.
Big fan.
All of it. Thank you so much.
Bye, guys.
There'll be more.
Love your movie.
Thank you. Very kind.
So, ladies and gentlemen, if you're listening and not watching this on YouTube, of course, Mike Starr is very famous, so we've got people coming up to him throughout the interview.
At Snooze.
Yes, Snooze AM and Tustin. So, but where I was going to go.
So my brother, my brother comes
Yeah.
backstage, right? Oh, he comes backstage. It was a Catholic high school, Mary Louis Academy, and there was this they had the dancing girls from Carousel, I think. I was mixed because I did the non-musical straight version of meaning like that. What do they say? They use the term, whatever, just the book was called Lilium before it was Carnival. That was my freshman year when I got in Hofstra. But anyway, my brother sees me and said, "Oh, you're going to act." I said, "No, I want to play football." And he says, "No, you got this thing called charisma." I'd never heard the word. But it was funny, you had the dance when there was just this beautiful young lady, I especially remember, that I would talk to, say hi to and whatnot. And all of a sudden one day, they had like backless dresses, that went down to it. The nuns made them cover it.
For sure.
With a strip. I said, "What the hell is that?" "Oh, sister such and such says what." So we're doing this play, and musical and having a great time. And the guy who got me involved was great. He was a senior. He was the lead. He was just tremendous. And I don't know what became of him. I had some Irish name, great guy. And he probably to this day doesn't know that he got me involved. So my brother, I said, "No, I want to play football." He goes, "Football?" It was 67, 68 running. He says, "That's for jocks." He goes, "They're out." And literally, if I can say his advice to me, which I was pretty virtual, he goes, "They're getting laid backstage. What, are you kidding me? Come out to Hop Street." So my brother says, "Listen, they're getting..." How's it going? We're okay here, right? We're going to move inside in a bit if it's all right.
Should we move out? We're good?
Because we're at Snooze.
Yes. Do you want to go inside?
Famous story.
Or you want
in a few minutes.
Okay.
Let me 3 minutes to tell the end of this story.
For sure.
So my brother would say, "No, they get laid backstage, this and that. There's musicians and actors are in. Jocks are out." He
That's
told me.
smart, man.
Musicians,
And this is 60s.
late 60s. Boy, did he turn out to be right.
Right?
So, and eventually, when I was a walk-on in football, all the guys who were playing in Ohio since they were like in the second grade were all burnt out. They were saying to me, "I want to do what you're doing. What the hell are you doing here?" I said, "Well, I never got a chance to play organized. Well, this is fun." So a lot of, they were like, guys were on scholarship quitting, and I was like, I got a chance to play. I was no big player, but had a lot of heart, they said.
I believe it.
So anyway, one day my brother's practicing, and I went out, Tank Passuello, Al Passuello, bless his soul, Tank, he was this big guy, he had been an orphan, he was Marine. He owned a place called Bill's Meadowbrook, which I think is still there under different names. His son might still own it, but him, and believe it or not, Brian Denny had a brother, Ed Denny.
FX.
No, but Brian is known. I think Tank got him into acting. He wasn't into it at all. I think he was an ex-Marine, he was a stockbroker, and he was just so great at it, natural. But Tank eventually got him into it. But Ed, his brother, was this genius. But I had a little battle with the bottle, but he looked like 1/3 the size of Brian. And he looked like he was like 70 years old, and he was like 20.
Wow.
But he evidently was very popular with people and this and that, but he was this brilliant actor. So I went to see, and Danny Help was in it, I went to see Tank and Bourne yesterday, and Ed was in that, but I also went to see the Irish play The Hostage, which I wound up being a small part of at the Denver many years later. And
very cool.
I just got so hooked on it. And Hofstra had this 1,100-seat theater, and the actors were so top-notch at Hofstra. I mean, it was like unreal, and the teaching was so great. I said, well, that'll be cool. I said, I'll be a poli-sci major, and I'll audition for plays. That'll be fun.
Nice.
Well, anyway, so we go to Bill's Meadowbrook after a jet practice with my dad. And here comes in Lynn and Leverage, who the next year would win like Best Actress in the country. They would win Best Show in the American College Theater Festival, and they did Rashomon with Carl Pilo and all these great people. Mark Winkler. I mean, just Lynn wound up, being on a soap, I think. A really nice lady, beautiful lady, and Carol Sika, who wound up being my teacher, Italian woman, and her mentor became a huge mentor, Miriam Tulin, out of the Yiddish Theater and the Group Theater, and had a big influence on me. And could be tough if I was screwing up, but was really helpful. And what happened was I'm sitting at the bar, and my brother introduced me to these two people. So they start telling me about the drama program. And Carol Sika starts, she was Miss Sika for 4 years to us, right? But she starts, and eventually got to see her again. She starts telling me, good ambiance, all right. So,
perfect.
So,
thank you.
So Carol Sika starts telling me about this core program. Now all I knew was like performing arts. I said, what? So I'm sitting there politely like, oh great. It's 50 actors all working together. I'm sitting there going, yeah, 50. You go inside, it's like that inside voice. Yeah, sure, 50. Yeah. Like I'm gonna do that, right?
Yeah.
So, and Lynn's telling me, oh yes, well we're doing this production, and I'm listening. So they leave. I was very polite, respectful. My dad was pretty quiet, not like me. Me and my mom would talk, and it was cool. And they left. So my brother says, so what do you think? He gets me along. What do you think, huh? I said, what do I think of what? The drama department. I want you to be a drama. I said, what are you, serious? Me? Drama major? All these kids from PA and performing arts?
Yeah.
Acting? No, I'll just act up. He said, hey, schmuck. So he was very tough. My father was more like a grandfather with me a lot of times, My brother Bo, he was hard on me.
Nice.
My brother John was always if he thought I was screwing up, he might yell at me, but he was always carried me around, believe it or not. And, when he joined the Marine Corps, I was like up to his waist,
Yeah.
And my brother Jimmy was the cool one. He was the street one,
nice,
and he introduced me to a lot of interesting, cool worlds. He was.
Love that.
And, his pictures in Vietnam, everybody would have like, a lot of people would come back and these, serious pictures. He'd have pictures of himself that looked like the cover of the Impressions album. He'd be with his friends from Chicago, with sunglasses like this, No, like,
No,
like this,
smooth.
right? He was cool. Yeah, he was classical.
Yeah, I like that.
And, he nicknamed himself. He played in this. Wasn't the Ruckus or Snap St. Nicholas athletic program, and he nicknamed himself the White Jesus, because remember Black Jesus. So he was a classic, and he was a hit up there on 135th Street. Played for the Joe Ray All Stars. Told me one time they were short a man because Joe Ray was getting indicted for strangling someone in this building. Says Joe's a little late right now, so he'd always have him and Matthew Papa from Jacksonville used to come to our house, And my apartment in the project, we had everybody that probably existed on the face of the earth, including Filipino relatives. My Irish uncle married in world. We had everybody. My father put up everybody. We had 3 bedrooms.
That's so rad.
It was crazy. I did a lot of couch.
Yeah.
A lot of couch time.
Sounds like
which is another story I got to tell you about my friend Gary.
Upbringing, yeah.
So yeah, and my father was great with food, and my mother knew everybody. She was a classic. And my father was very low-key and quiet. But we had interesting relatives and everything. So Massachusetts and New York. So I have a little bit of a mixture of an accent sometimes. And anyway, my brother says, hey, schmuck. They don't have anyone that looks like you. Or talks like us. Or anything close. You're like a find for them. I guess the diamond in the rough.
That's
You're
right.
like this character that no one has, and he turned out to be right.
That's right.
And he said, if you're any good after a year, they're going to give you a full scholarship. I said, what?
Sign me up.
So a week later, here's this kid who was just in Catholic school, not 1A, not going into the military. All of a sudden, this kid is dancing in tights, There's me doing body movement with Karl Morris, World War II veteran. I said, yeah, really, wow, this is cool. This is so much fun, And I wound up doing plays, and I met my best friend Brian Rose, and I wound up taking the minimum of credits the first year, and then got the full scholarship, and then as a walk-on, Mrs. Deneen helped get me scholar athlete money, and I did pretty well most of the time.
So you were still hell-bent on playing football?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I wound up, I'm trying to write a script around with my friend Esther. We're trying to, I went back, my wife who went to med school when she's 32 said, no, I can't put you through that. I said, wait a second, you let me try to go out and play in 19, I was 26, 27, I tried to play football. You put up with every crazy thing I did,
yep.
And the one thing you said, you wouldn't let me quit acting. You didn't care anything I did, but you're not going to quit.
Yep.
And many times I wanted to, and
I believe it, my friend.
I thought I'd come back 20 years later, do a civil service show. I had looked into the fire department, things like that, and I started getting work. Actually, my father-in-law had me with a job with the state of Connecticut, working going to work with kids, and then all of a sudden I started getting all this work.
This is after Hofstra or during Hofstra?
After a few years later, after I was married. So I wound up getting this scholarship, and then somewhere along the way I met this really interesting man, Jerry Rosenfeld, urban anthropologist, real character, neighborhood street guy, and was a basketball player, and he taught me to look at the world a whole different way, but he also got me work in the anthro department and got me, got me to teach a class along with a couple other friends. But I taught a class on the relationship of film and theater with the culture.
Very cool.
And I brought in all my actor friends.
Nice.
Lou Berger, who's now one of the head writers for the Children's Theater Workshop. He told me one time, he's writing for Sesame Street, and Lou says to me, we were roommates, he says, yeah, I write for Felt. My friend Phil Garfinkel, we did a program in Italy one summer with one of my friend Bobby Calendruccio and Tony Valente, football players. That was an experience. But I wound up doing a lot of interesting things, and I got involved in politics at Hofstra, and I was one of those guys that reached across the aisle, and got along with everybody, but I would try to get funding for local things in communities like daycare centers. I felt a lot of times universities were didn't really embrace surrounding areas. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Sometimes they take the location, but
Yeah.
So I thought there should be a relationship between that. I mean, that was just one of the cogs in the wheel. I wasn't this big leader, but I tried to get more music and theater scholarships and even something for sports and for other people, and we managed to do that. We were trying to build up the communications department, which is very good, and so that's what happened. That's how I got into it. And then I went on those searches, for Buddha and Jesus. I kind of dropped out for a couple of years and flaked, but it was all right.
You learned about yourself.
Me out, but and I did a lot of interesting things. But finally, married, and we had a child, and I said, "Hey, I'm working at it was called Jacqueline's Health Spa, $125 a week."
Oh, I love it.
And we were working downtown Manhattan, so you'd have the mayor, all different people, union leaders, all interesting people.
Yeah.
I said, I'm supposed to be pretty good at this, right? I had a scholarship. How do I get work? And my friend Gary Epstein has his own agency, was an assistant agent at a commercial place. And that was one of the ways. But I'll tell you another funny thing. One day I'm in the gym, and there was a player, star fullback for the Jets from the Super Bowl, Matt Snell. And Matt walks in, and he looks at me, and there are times I look exactly like my brother. There were times we did, depending on weight or this and that. We played Twin Killers and Hoodlum together.
Oh, very cool.
And we played Enemies and this and that. But Matt looks in and goes, wait. And I said, no, my brother played with you, Bill Starr. He goes, oh, yeah, he was good, good guy, this and that. And I said, what are you doing? He goes, well, I'm an agent. I said, I want to try to play football. And he said, well, I'll try to hook you up with a team, this and that. So Matt did that, but here's the best. One day I'm working at Jacqueline's now, they moved me out to Queens with the other troublemakers together, which I'm trying to write a single camera on that now.
Very
1976,
cool.
right?
Yep.
It's an interesting time, post-Vietnam, this and that, So one day I heard about this movie, Semi-Tough, which Brian Dennehy wound up playing the center on, but, with Chris Christopherson, and remember, it was from a book, Dan Jenkins, Semi-Tough, so there was Chris, was that, I mix up North Dallas 40 with, that's terrible, I shouldn't do that, I get mad when people do that.
You're human.
Yeah, But anyway, Semi-Tough. It was really cool, fun book. And I tried to get an audition, and I went to Matt Snell. I said, Matt, do you know anyone? I'm trying to get in this football movie. He goes, why, are you an actor? I said, I'm a lot better actor than a football player. Trust me. He goes, what the hell are you doing playing football?
Right.
I almost died after a Miami Dolphin game. I got on a flight and I didn't know I had a ruptured spleen. What are you, crazy?
Yeah.
My knees are a mess. He said, I'm going to get you. So he got me with an agent, God rest her soul, Cynthia Ragland, classic lady. And Cynthia was partners with the famous to me, Art Shamsky, who's referenced a lot on Everybody Loves Raymond. Great guy. And they got me commercials. Then eventually I moved on. I was doing a lot of theater, and I got seen. Dan Lauria got me involved in a play. We did a thing. I played Dutch Schultz. We got really good people in it. And I wound up getting seen by Lou DiGiamo, and I was in a controversial movie called Cruising.
Don't remember that.
And then, it was very controversial about, Al Pacino did it. William Friedkin did it. It was about a specific group of the gay male community that was really interesting, and it got destroyed, right? And they thought it was going to cause all this violence, but years later, people really, it was a big hit. I'll tell you how long ago, 79. It was a big hit in West Germany and Australia. And then at Cannes, or Cannes, however you say it, years later, and it was an interesting experience for me because I learned from William Friedkin. When I got to Hofstra, Miriam Tulin, Dr. Tulin said, this young man could work in film right now. He's what they call a natural.
You are.
So anyway, I just would do things but he wants to do theater. So we got to teach him how to do theater. The problem was, I was used to 1,100 seats. No, I'd be auditioning for commercials going, Schaefer, you want to take away our gusto? I thought, what the fuck was I doing? And I remember, it was the second film, it was my first New York film, and William Friedkin just looked at me and went, hey man, it's all Spencer Tracy, man. It's a Zendo. He told me when out on the street, people would demonstrate and throwing things because nothing else exists but you doing this. You hear, man? He was out there, William Friedkin. He's a trip.
Yeah.
And he was very good to me, but I learned so much, I'm not always faithful to it, and sometimes you gotta be bigger.
Yes.
But I started learning from him. I would say something like, okay, 2 for the money. He goes, yeah. And it's like, I feel like something, on a sitcom, like, what did I just do?
Yeah, exactly.
But, it paid off in certain movies, certain movies where people would say things like, wow, that was great. I said, what did I do? I just talked like myself.
Yeah.
That type
You're
of
natural,
thing.
Yeah,
So, whatever. But I mean, I think a lot of it he taught his film. But the first film I ever did, they couldn't get all these famous football. Merlin Olsen, Alex Karras didn't want to do this. It was a film in Japan called Bushido Play with all these Japanese stars. James Earl Jones did a cameo.
Nice.
I told him I wrote a paper on him. And I got to go to Japan. I'm living back in the projects again. And finally got my wife and my daughter Cassie was 2 at the time to come over. But I met the great Richard Boone, who worked a week on it. He was an interesting character. I can look him up. We named our son, because he said, I'm never going to see a grandchild. He was telling me he has cancer. He's telling me, oh my God. And he was so good to people, Marine extras, Navy extras. He'd bring them in the room, buy $100 steaks. He'd give them vodka. He was just the greatest.
Yeah.
And I got to sit a week in a hotel room. He'd just tell me stories. Whether it was, because I had all these different people he was a World War II veteran, Navy champion fighter, or heavyweight fighter. Just people would stop and see him. He did this famous show called Have Gun Will Travel, which I pitched to Dennis Farina, God rest his soul, and he says, oh, Mike Starr, we got to do it, and someone else had the rights, Travolta, someone, but it was the first time a hero dressed in black and wasn't like, the scrubby white-faced blonde. Richard Boone had this scraggly face, and dark hair. And very interesting man. I learned a lot from him, but the film never saw the light of day. They put me on a horse. I'd never been on a horse in my life, and the horses were not like movie horses. Like, hey, it's like stories that I gained a whole bunch of weight. I remember because they wanted me to play this big wrestler. They dyed my hair red, which in the sunlight turned strawberry. It was hysterical. It was like you'd have busloads of Japanese kids waving at me. I think they thought I was a pro wrestler.
That's so
Since then I
rad.
go up and down. Yeah, it was a ride. It was a great experience. And my wife, who's the pediatric heart surgeon, had to give a talk, and she surprised me. We went to Kyoto, and my friend Richie White, who knows everybody all over Asia, hotel men, set it up, and they surprised me. They took me to the Nanaji Temple where I had filmed 40 years before.
No way.
My wife was giving a talk because one of her specialties is this ECMO, which keeps people alive outside the body, the children, and she said, "Come on, we're going to go to Kyoto," and it was our anniversary. It was amazing. It was trippy. It was just, the whole thing was a great experience. And the movie was called Bushido Blade, and I came back to Queens, and I think for 4 or 5 hours I told funny stories about me being on the horse, trying to get out, working with people like Sonny Chiba and Toshiro Mifune, and just so many funny stories I had, ridiculous stories of me flying through things and being on cliffs and everything, just great stuff, and kindness from people, and but it was in Mako. Matsu was the greatest.
What part of Japan were you staying?
Well, we went from Tokyo. We went all around. We went up to Kyoto, but then we'd be in places like Hakone and Kobe, and we'd be in like real rural areas.
Okay, so you weren't like Roppongi or Tokyo.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you weren't. Okay.
Did all that, but you couldn't. It was 1840s. It was about the when the Americans wanted to open up Japan. With Commodore Perry.
So it's hard to get that authenticity in the 1800s when you're in Tokyo.
Yeah. So we were in a place one day, Arthur Rankin, they had about 10 of the Christmas cartoons, Frosty and everything. Real nice man. I think his father was Rank Productions in England, but Arthur Rankin, and I'm trying to remember the writer's name. He was a very sweet guy, very humble. He had some really cool cartoon he used to draw and write. Steve Roper, I think it was. He's like out of the 40s and the 50s, and he gave me all sorts of autograph stuff. But they wrote, and they kind of did a melange of stories, and sometimes people would say, I don't know if this is quite right, this is quite authentic, and he's wearing something from the 14th century, and he's, really, but it's great. We went to big Japanese stars, classics, who later on you get to see in so many. Toshiro Mifune is iconic, he's in some of the greatest Kurosawa films, but it was such a, here I am, and I just gained like 50 pounds, like 40, and I went on a horse once with Danny Harper, who was one of the last cavalry officers, part Apache, part Irish, and 10 bar with my brother. And
no way. I
think I sat on a horse for 5 minutes, and I'm over there like, whoa! One time, Frank Converse was we were looking at dailies, he said, you didn't need they said they couldn't get a stunt double for me. They said that you didn't need a stunt double, they should just get a sack of blue laundry and put a red wig on it. So I was like, whoa! But I got into it eventually, I enjoyed it.
Nice.
But I never really wrote, years later I got on a cowboy film. It was so strange. I'd gotten on horses a few times, but it was scarier, for some reason. They say that's why it's better to learn when you're early, it's like driving or anything else, before you know any better. But it was funny being on, of course, I have great stunt doubles that I have, so...
Well, listen, so we're running into 47 minutes. I know you want to go inside.
Let's go inside, yeah.
Can we do that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, listeners, viewers, we're going to change things up here, give you guys another perspective. We're going to go inside. I like it.
Ever see the movie The Producers, the first one?
Yeah, oh yeah.
With Zero Mostel and Gene Wilder?
Yes.
Who I idolize both of them, but I got to work with Gene Wilder.
I saw that in was that the movie? No,
the movie, the first one, not the play.
Yes, that's right.
Because they changed it for the play, and they were brilliant too.
That's
of course,
right.
Nathan and Matthew.
Yes.
But anyway, there's a scene where they're auditioning the Hitlers, and this one guy gets up. What have you done, Dave? He asked it. Roger Dupree, the director, asked him, "What have you done?" He goes, "I was up for the lead in Madame Butterfly in what was it, the Arizona or the something Arizona Opera House." He goes, and I didn't get it. So when I mention, I catch myself when I say, "Oh, I was up there." I said, "Oh my God, I feel." My friend Gary McMillan would just hound me if I said, "Oh, I went for it." He goes, "You didn't get it." Okay.
That's so rad.
You'd have actors sitting around, telling about what, and then if you just don't want to be that angry, bitter guy that you hear. You got to be careful. Sometimes we have a righteous anger, or maybe we're justified. We feel. But man, it's the last thing I want to do. It's like the last thing I don't want to be that guy. I don't. It's not that you have to be an ass kisser, but just that didn't happen. Totally. There was a very funny guy named Sam Coppola. He told me the really cool ones are the ones, hopefully I'm part of that make fun of themselves, take themselves here.
Totally.
Sam told me he said this part was his. He knew it. And he went so incensed into his agent. He says, I should be playing that role. Why am I not? And he went, Sam said he was so adamant. His agent just was, no, Al Pacino. So he goes, oh, okay.
I love that.
You
So
know?
so I love Gene Wilder because when I grew up, my dad allowed me to watch a lot of horror movies. I watched Commando, right? As long as they were with me, I got Black Rain, right, with Andy Garcia, right, which I believe was in Japan as well.
Yeah, that was, I know what it was about. Yeah, what the
right?
Yeah.
So I was able to watch, was it Running Scared with Gene Wilder and Richard Pryor?
Running Scared was something different.
What's the one where they were both together?
And the trains.
What was that? I thought it was Running
Oh,
Scared.
I'm sorry. No, I could be wrong.
I have
I'm sorry.
no
I
idea.
should know that.
But either
I
way.
apologize. No, there was Hear No Evil, See No. They did a couple of things. One
Right?
they did. Yeah, no. One was with the train, right? Oh
Yeah.
God, I can't remember that. But one of them was he was Gene. Gene was deaf and Richard Pryor was blind or something like that.
Yes. Yes.
But they would.
So
they did great prison
How was that
scenes.
working with Gene Wilder? I mean, you've worked with a
Absolutely magical because he wrote. Todd Dale had casted Joyce Chopra, who I wound up working with with her and the producer on Law and Order, Fred from Law and Order. Oh God! But Gene wrote these Agatha Christie mysteries, and he set them in 1939, and in Stamford, Connecticut, he said, and that's where him and Gilda had. I think they had lived there, and actually, he just hear him speak about her. And when he was after Gilda had passed away years later, he worked on See No Evil, Hear No Evil, and the technical advisor with signing and everything. Gene wound up marrying her. She was a great lady, and she
very cool.
Stayed married till we lost Gene. And the second time we were filming, I think Gene was having problems, and then he got over it and lived a number of years. But they wanted at one point A&E to do a weekly, and Gene just felt they couldn't keep the strength. Yeah, he didn't think and he wanted to keep the integrity of it. That's not knocking any weekly series,
No,
but
totally,
he just did. So he wrote them, but he was. They say that a lot of times he was the exact opposite of his persona on screen.
Right.
He spoke very, unless he told me a story about young Frankenstein, and he would be talking to Mel Brooks and going, "Wait, Mel, I did," and then that was the few times you saw him doing that. But he had these wonderful women acting on it. Cherry Jones, in big Broadway star, and oh God, the great people. The lead from Lost, Terry, one of his, and fella who was he was on, he played a Nazi on it, American Nazi. But the one from 6 Feet Under, whose brother-in-law turned out it was one of my football coaches at Hofstra. But oh God, I'm sorry, the great redheaded woman. Then there was a woman who was in all these German films. I mean, just he got the woman's roles were so great, so ahead of his time. 1998. And it was one of these jobs. I mean, I usually have fun whatever I'm doing.
I can imagine.
But the thing is that Charles says that would be my role as producer, actor on the films we're going to do.
For sure.
Charles does all the, the month and this and that, and the writing and the budgeting and everything and producing. And I would be the guy on the set.
Yes.
Come on, what are you complaining about? People are in wars right now, and you're complaining about you don't like the donuts on it.
See, you're a natural already, right?
They called me a shop steward on The Natural, the movie The Natural. It was funny, at one point, some of these people had never acted before. A few weeks into it, they were getting a little spoiled. I think they admitted later on. And I said, we should be going with masks, because this is stealing what we're doing. We're showing up, acting like baseball players. Me, I said on the dugout. So one day, one of the fellas, who's a priest now, who's a character, AAA ball player, he went out and we bought all Lone Ranger masks.
Oh, nice.
And Samoan Teamster, one of the heads, we were all wearing them. Caleb Deschanel put one on.
Yeah.
And a lot of people didn't know what we were doing, but I was trying to say, we're stealing money. Because I was used to doing theater for nothing, this and that. I mean, my wife wasn't even in med school yet. I had 3 kids by then, an infant. And, here it was with all these stars. Wilford Brimley and Richard Farnsworth are paying for everything. Duval would take us out. Redford couldn't be any kinder. Wow. And I said, we're on this thing. This is great. I said, you guys think this is normal, what we're experiencing now? I said, I was working with a place, doing a play for nothing. So hoping we're trying to get to Broadway, which we did.
Right.
But we got good reviews off Broadway, but it was really for a small house. But roaches would be on this. I fell through a ceiling, fell through steps one time, going through it and hanging on. I said, this is like people are running to get you things, I'm not saying you should be abused, but it was funny perspective. So that's, but if I thought people were being abused, it's one of those things. I think I'm a frustrated union leader sometimes or whatever. People would say, no, you got to go talk to them. You got to, hey, they're doing this, But that was a magical show. That was a great experience I got by clowning around. The Broadway show closed in one night. All I wanted to do was impress Barry Levinson. I went and screwed around at the tryout because I can't play baseball.
Yeah.
And sure enough, about a week later, everyone said, "Where's that big guy, that big funny guy?" And Luke Chalmers said, "He told you he couldn't play because I don't care."
Yeah.
And they made me a designated ad-libber.
That's so rad.
Yeah, it was a magical time. And Robert Redford was so helpful. My wife came to visit, and he was talking about medical schools in Utah and Colorado. His sister was a nurse, and it was really cool. But how did we get into that anyway? I was telling you something.
I was asking about Gene Wilder.
So Gene, I loved, like I was saying, I love most things, but I gotta tell you, I played the detective in the town. It was a great idea he had. He was the theater director in 1938, 39, so you know things that were happening then historically. And I was the detective. I was Tony Baloney. He called me Tony.
Tony Baloney.
I actually had to sing opera in it one time, and I'll tell what, I'm not an opera singer, but it just was a funny thing that happened. I had to learn it and everything. But, which I did sing a song like that in Miller's Crossing, actually. Looped myself, and people thought someone else sang it. But Gene had such beautiful characters that you couldn't wait to get to the set. It was so much fun. It was so great. He'd say, "Come on, we're going to do 30s talk today." So Cherry Jones and me, we'd sit like in a theater talking about, "Yeah, but that's not what happened. Da, 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 da. No, but I'm telling you, oh my God, you had to like speak like a 1930s movie or 40s movie." Yeah, he was really cool. And my wife wound up getting him a book, an original, a first print of Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. It was found in New Hampshire or something like that.
Very cool.
Yeah.
He
was.
loved that.
We'd always go out to restaurants. He loved Italian restaurants.
Nice.
And
yeah, he was a New Yorker, wasn't he? Didn't he live in New York for a while? I mean, most of his adult life, I thought he was in New York.
I think so. I think he had given me actually a Roman Judaic restaurant. It was called Judaic. I forget. It was a Jewish Roman Jewish restaurant he gave me in Manhattan. It was great. And I think he was from, I remember he told me, I mean, he spent most of his life there and then moved to Connecticut. But
exactly.
I remember him telling me that he saw Dustin Hoffman in a play that a lot of people wouldn't remember. In the 60s, I guess it was in the 60s, that he got the Obie Award for a Broadway award, which was a cool thing.
Yeah.
Dustin Hoffman did all this great stuff. He said he wrote a letter to Dustin Hoffman. He didn't know him, but he wrote a letter about how great he was in it. Neither one of them were stars. And
what a great story.
Gene really had I don't like to say the best guy I met, the best guy. I hate pouring out. People say, "What's your best experience?" I said, "There's a lot of different ones."
That's right.
I said, but I didn't meet anyone better than him. If I can put it that way, politely, like
for sure.
Kindest, but he had a real sense of moral center and spirituality about him, and caring about people.
And honestly, I know you guys were acting when you were acting, but for me, it seemed to come through in his roles. He seemed even when he was
that's
messing
interesting.
around.
No, especially in film, you can see that. I have people say that about different people. they say sometimes there's a kindness that comes through, you know.
And I can tell you,
have to act mean, you know.
the
whatever.
movie that I could specifically tell you that I remember watching as a child. The first one I saw him in was Young Dr. Frankenstein or Young Frankenstein, right?
No.
Putting on the
He wrote
Ritz.
that, yeah, he
Right?
wrote that.
I loved that movie. Right?
He was so funny. He just.
But he was so caring in that.
And I don't know if Mel Brooks even wanted to direct it. He says, "Come on, you got to direct him." I was, you know, he had done the producers.
Yeah.
And Gene would tell me great stories about it. And he said, "Will, I want you to meet someone." This is the man who set it up.
I love it.
I told him about it yesterday.
I love it.
He gave me the okie doke. Will,
What's up, my friend? Thank you. Nice to meet you, my
Sorry,
friend.
I'm so cold.
Oh, no worries. I love it.
we're doing the.
I love it.
Oh, you did.
Wait.
Yeah, we're doing the.
So you're the blues guy.
Yeah, I'm the GM. Yes.
Okay, so we're doing a podcast. Say hi. Come in here. Come in here. So
the fellow with the clip.
Hello, Hubert.
yeah. So ladies and gentlemen, he's the owner of Snooze. Right, and you're
Not the owner. No,
well,
not
either
the owner.
GM. You're big. You're somebody here that actually is high up, right?
Yes, sir.
You gave me the okie doke
Right.
yesterday.
So, ladies and gentlemen, come support. So come patronize Snooze. Will is the man here. I'm sure he'll take care of you. But he's the guy. He's the glue who hooked us up. Besides Charles
Follow that
for
rap,
today. So
so-
thank you.
Thank you. It's my
Thank you, Will.
pleasure.
Yeah,
Appreciate
you
that.
leave, didn't
Most
you?
definitely. Thank you.
Thank
Thank you.
Yeah.
No, he's still here.
He's got to come out and say hello.
Okay.
They do a blood drive.
Thank you, Will.
Right? They do a blood drive. You get a free pancake, right? Free pancakes if you give blood.
When is that?
So we were going to plan another one, hopefully sometime this year. We just got to plan it out.
Okay, so-
Everything with the marketplace, we got to plan it out.
So people, come and give some blood here. Stay tuned, right? And get some free meals. Help people out and help your stomach out. Right? Nice meeting you, Will. Thank you.
We got to have him step in.
Oh, I love it. Okay, my
step
man.
in the future.
All right. So,
Podcast
no,
room.
you
Right
can
here.
come in
You're on
You're
camera.
right on camera, dude. Oh, cool. Okay, so we just met this young man. He's very, very talented. Tell everybody, what's your name?
My artist name is Brian To Earth. I'm from Santa Ana, California, and I'm the MC of a hip-hop jazz band called Apollo Bebop.
I love that, and I just met him. I love his energy, but obviously he's got some sort of musical talents and gifts, and obviously this is his hustle, right? So come support him, come patronize him. But we're gonna get him on a next renting podcast. We're gonna interview him and possibly your band, right? But for sure, love to start with you and then share.
Quickie now? Or?
You know what's funny is that we're a quintet, so it's me, drummer, bass, guitar, and sax, and my saxophone is just the dishwasher.
No way. Okay, so guys, stay tuned.
Sounds like actors.
We're totally gonna do this. We're gonna do another podcast. We're gonna have him. But do you want to give out your Instagram handle or how they can? Reach
Yeah,
you?
so you can find me personally at BGOMZ, that's at BGOMZ on Instagram, everywhere. And then you can find my band at Apollo Bebop, so that's APOLLOBEBOP.
My man, thank you very much. I appreciate that, and I look forward to our meeting.
My idol. He always
Right?
looks so cool.
Oh, I love it. Thanks for
Hey,
introducing
did you
me.
want to get a little taste of what?
Yeah. Here we
Oh,
go.
dude. And ladies and gentlemen, he's gonna throw us a treat.
gonna do it.
Let's do it. Here we go.
Alright, so usually my drummer Donnie is dropping the beat though and throwing it to me like a free throw or like the dice in casinos. Castigo when he rap it is cheesy like Cheetos. I only get better with age, change my name to Vino. Brian the Herb, never staying on the D-Lo. That's my name, wear it out or wear it out like peacoats. It'll keep you warm even when the weather's frio. I'm not just any rapper, but your favorite rapper's hero.
Yeah.
Maybe that's exaggerated, but it's speaking to reality, so I have to make it. It's half man, half amazing. Appreciate the adoration, cementing myself into eternity. The adoration to my legacy,
Yes.
to my entity. I'm feeling this energy, I'm feeling this energy, converting my enemies, become a friend of me. So we can
Yes.
build together, get the opposite of entropy.
That's
You feel me?
right. I do feel you, and that's why we're gonna get.
Absolutely. God
That's
bless.
why we're gonna get you on our podcast,
I was
bro. We
saying
feel
that.
you, man.
Yeah.
You guys feel that? You guys got his Instagram handles. Go
Eric
follow
from
this
Seattle.
man.
Yeah.
Right? This is sick.
Thank you.
Thank you, my friend.
What's your name again, man?
Oh, my name's Rick.
Rick?
Rick. Rumor Rick, but Rick. That's my alias.
Well, there you go. Yeah, well, thanks for having me.
Are you
Yeah,
kidding me? Thank you. Thanks for that treat, man.
Yeah, actually, I totally forgot. I'm gonna write down the.
Oh, dude, for sure. Is this thing going, by the way? Is this still recording?
Yeah.
Perfect. Just making sure. All right. Thank you.
Thanks for having me, man. Thanks for having
Thank
me.
you.
Appreciate it.
That was a great treat, man.
It's nice,
I
huh?
can't wait to interview him, man. Thank you.
We did that.
This is how we do with renting ranting quarters. We just, right? We get all these people coming in out of the ether with these incredible talents. You never know.
You never know what talent is,
right? You
yeah.
never know who's. I mean, it's insanity, man. So obviously, Gene Wilder was awesome. Let's talk about the one movie that everybody already knows, right? How was it working with Jim Carrey?
That was a treat because it's such opposite poles, Jeff and Jim, you know. And Jim was always we had a lot of fun. He wound up like he had gallbladder surgery while I was doing that. And my wife was a fourth-year resident at the time, and he was in a lot of pain. The night before I hung out with him, he flew a friend in, Wayne, a comedian from Canada, and we had this great talk. But he would always mess around with party. We would have fun all the time. He was nice to everybody, but he was on flat. He would mess with me in public a lot of times.
Oh man, that's so
He'd
funny.
tell me about his childhood and everything. And he would do punchlines from stories that were kind of dark and heavy stories, and he'd do it to me in public. Well, I'd be interviewed and he'd lean in, like if he was here now, he'd lean in and he goes, "He was such a liar," and he'd run away, you know? And he even pranked my wife when she was working. He said he needed the help, which he did ask, but he did some long, crazy thing he did on the phone. He said, "Who the hell was that? I gotta get back." She's in a busy emergency room. I asked her, "Would you talk to this guy? He's so scared and nervous about it." And he's going, "Ah!" And then he goes, I'm okay. I'm like, oh my God. But he was a lot of fun. And Jeff, a lot of times kept to himself, stayed very focused, have his head. So I would sometimes, we'd be sitting in that van and it would be just me and Jeff. The Jim would do it. Awesome.
Thank you.
He's so nice. Great spirit. So one time I got Jeff. Jeff was getting into golf heavily, and we had some really good talks. And the Farrelly brothers were really, we had a Hall of Fame hockey player playing Seabass, Cam Neely, and the Farrelly brothers were really into hockey and golf and everything. And the greatest people would visit. They had a young fella, Constantine, who was a head coach at the time. He jumped from the juniors right up to there. I think, I'm trying to think of 10 minutes. So he coached around in Pittsburgh and whatnot, and he was just the nicest fellow. All these cool people would come. But Jeff would be usually quiet, but if someone came from sports, he'd go, "How did that happen?" He'd be upset about the try. I'd say, "Jesus Christ, man, you got a lot of energy about that, you know?" So Jeff would a lot of times, not to be rude, but he had this outrageous hair, and he'd be like sometimes resting on the set, and Jim would be going bah, 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 bah. He'd be doing a thing, and I'd be in the middle, just like this, you know, trying to
like
stay in somewhat of a
brothers.
character. So just sitting in the middle.
Yeah.
So one time I saw Jeff, and he kept like, he was like sleeping, this and that, and I think Jim had to do something. I can't remember, but I leaned out at the cameraman, and I talked complete nonsense to the cameraman. Like guys that want to talk. Sometimes people love to really show how much they know about cameras. Usually I'll ask questions now, cameraman, because maybe I'll direct spots. Or I'm curious about their work. I say, why do you choose that, or why do you do this lens? And sometimes I can't answer when they quiz me. But anyway, one day Jeff just was not responding to anything. Jim was forward this and that. So finally I leaned over to the camera and said, "You got me on a cowboy. What are you using, a 60 in that? I want you to, because we're going to be coming down there, I want you to catch it." And I just made up all this nonsense. You know, like, you catch me underneath and I'll have my guy out there, my stunt man, do that. And you just stay there with your camera and make sure you cover me. And I said, "I think you're going to have a John Wayne on me on that one," and something like that. "Yeah, and I'll be," and I just started rambling. All of a sudden, it was like a monster who woke up. Jeff Daniels like, you told me, shut up. And he just started laughing hysterically. And he was writing this really cool play that we almost did sometime. Jeff has his own theater, and most of it is based, it's in Michigan, Purple Rose, because he was in Purple Rose at Cairo, among other great performances. To me, that the show Newscast was one of the best shows ever. And he did a Newscast, I think it was, I'm saying the wrong name, but they had so many friends and so many great people on that. But he just went nuts, and he said, "Would you come to my trailer, because I'm writing this play and I need a guy who talks like a stunt coordinator." And he was cracking up, he's writing stuff down, and I said, "It's just from hearing friends of mine talk, about cameras." And I was just, so he was really cool, and there was a lot of fun on that set. You didn't know who was going to show up. I was more of a partier in those days, and
ladies and gentlemen, we're talking about Dumb and Dumber if you don't know, and we're also talking about Jim Carrey and Jeff Daniels, if you were wondering who the hell it is.
you know what's funny is that sometimes Jeff Daniels has done all these different, as Jim has done, and people just want to talk to them about Dumb and Dumber. It's funny.
Yeah. And that's
It's an iconic.
It's
I mean,
crazy,
with
my
the
man.
hospital, so many still there'll be people I'll visit or talk. They want, they asked to meet the guy from Dumb and Dumber. One time, it was a difficult situation with a kid, and my wife was just starting work in Chicago, and wouldn't talk to anyone. This kid really was in a tough situation, about 7 or 8 years old, and just said, "Listen, get your butt down here." Usually she'll say, "Do me a favor." What am I going to say? No, I'm kind of busy right now. I'm having a martini or whatever, Said, there's a kid down here. Talk to anyone, but I have a bet with her that I know the bad guy in Dumb and Dumber. So over here, it was really funny. So I sat there, and she was like looking straight ahead, like really tough. And I started telling her stories. I said, "You want to hear when Jim Carrey pranked Dr. Starr?" And I told her the story explicitly. And I was telling her. She started laughing, and boy,
She opened up.
yeah. My wife said, "I don't know what you did." I said, but all of a sudden she's this and that, and her story turned out great. And the nice thing is, like, sometimes people think I get annoyed when they mention Dumb and Dumber or Hustle. No, but I have to say, I bristle a bit when someone say, "I wouldn't watch that movie named Dumb and Dumber. I never watch that," And I'll say to myself, that's okay. There's a lot of people that it did a lot of good for a lot of people.
Without a doubt. In fact, that movie is so is so ingrained in my head. Not only you, not only Jim, Jeff, the whole cast.
Main guys,
but,
those two guys, yeah.
right. I mean, the Jeff on the toilet, right? That was insane.
That was one the boys. I should just tell
Oh,
you.
please, please.
I think that Peter had called me up the night before. I think we were coming out or whatever. Right around that time, the show was coming out. And I think that was one of the references that we're really concerned. The company is concerned about a demographic of women from whatever age, this and that.
Oh yeah.
And guess what? No kidding. It'd be funny. There's one woman from the Dallas Herald or something said, "I gotta confess, I love the movie." It was like people. It was like this guilty pleasure that they liked it.
I mean, I'm sorry.
Because of film scenes like that, they were
you
like,
can't
"Oh, no one
coach
will like
that.
it."
What he did.
See, I don't watch dailies much.
Yeah.
It's not because I'm embarrassed or that I'm so above it. No, I think that for me, it would make me too self-conscious. And I just rubbed my mouth. Oh,
For
don't
sure.
do that. If I
For
watch
sure.
this, I'd say, "Oh, don't do that."
For sure.
Or I
On
the
the
funny
same
thing
way.
was I'd say, I saw myself in character, and hopefully it's an organic inside-out thing. Hopefully, and it's technical, but I'd hate to see wait, look at the way I'm walking. I don't walk like that. I walk like
Yes.
this, And
Yes.
for that reason, I had watched the beginning of something. I'll watch something if I thought, like when I first got on some sitcoms, like I was working on a series, I went, "Oh Christ," I said, "What the hell am I doing?" Yeah. I remember my son came out one time in California. He was like 14, and he was very straightforward. He said, "Dad, why are you making all those faces?" I said, "Really?" I didn't say, "Hey, mind your business." I said, "Oh my God," and I watched.
Yeah, you didn't realize.
Pull it back, and sometimes it works, sometimes if it's organic, but I remember when I first got there, and the boys, the Farrelly brothers, Bobby actually played goalie behind that one fella that visited the coach, and I loved talking to Cam Neely, like I felt like I was I was self-appointed acting coach.
Yeah.
But and I came to the set when he was working, and that's cool when you do that. The actor Michael Jai White did that for me in a film, especially when I had to do dangerous stuff. He showed up. I said, "What are you doing here?" "Oh, just wanted to help." I said, "Really?"
Nice.
But on a job I did in New Mexico, but the Farrelly brothers, I was saying,
Yeah.
so they said, "Come and watch because I think it was one of my first times there. I want you to watch some of the things we shot."
Yeah.
Well, the first things I saw was the tongue getting stuck on the hole. And I'm losing. I said, "Is this the film I'm in?"
Yes.
And then when I saw Jeff do that thing with Holly when he was doing the snowball.
Yes. That's
Lauren
what I'm
Holly,
saying.
when he threw the snowball and he threw
Right
it in
in
the
the-
face.
that's right.
I said, "This is sick," and I started laughing. And I knew a lot of times people said, "Do you know if you're in something, how's it going to be?" All right, hopefully you know that if you're with Robert De Niro and Martin Scorsese,
sure.
there's a good chance this is going to be great,
Yep.
But, doing a scene like that, but you got to say, man, I sat there and went, this is funny.
It's
great.
insanity. In
Yeah.
fact, with the scene, not the scene, but the quote where he says he's running to the airport and he pushes the nun out of the way. He says,
It's all right on the script.
Move it or lose it, sister. Right? I use that quote all the time.
about that.
All the time. In fact, this is what's crazy. So Charles, when the gentleman Charles Johnson who introduced us, I interviewed him. He didn't tell me until the end of our interview the surprise that he gave me, the treat, the gift that is you.
Yeah.
Or the fact that he allowed me to interview, or he got us together. I don't know if it's a favor, but thank you. But during the interview,
Told me great things about you.
oh, I thank you, man. Thank you. So he says, and right back at you, by the way. And so he says, at some point during our interview, he said something about, he was pushing somebody out of the way, or I can't remember what it was. And I used that quote and I said, move it or lose it, sister. And in fact, I put up a snapshot of him, Jim Carrey, from the movie in the interview. I'll show you it on YouTube. It's on there. But it's so ironic because at the end of the interview, and I don't think Charles put two and two together that I had said a quote from Dumb and Dumber, and you were in that, which is one of your claim to fame, right? So it all comes together, but it's insanity because before I knew that I was going to be interviewing you that day with Charles Johnson, I had thrown out a quote from your movie. So, and when you do the pills, I mean, when you guys are chasing across, I mean, the whole movie. Look, I didn't want to come out of the gate saying, "Hey, the guy from Dumb and Dumber," because your credits roll way beyond Dumb and Dumber. I mean, you've done everything. So I wanted you to know that I checked out your filmography. In fact, before I even looked at your filmography, I already knew what you were in, but I just had to brush up on my skills. So I didn't want to come out and lead Dumb and Dumber, but my friend, it's not only a cult classic; it's part of my growing up, right? So
It's interesting. I talk to people. It's fascinating. A lot of professional athletes, especially baseball and hockey guys, I saw someone sent me the Milwaukee Brewers. These pitchers would do the scene. I've had people ask me, firemen in the Seattle airport, they were there for some event, they were from Idaho or something. They'd ask me to do, Mockingbird or something. They knew the scenes better than I did, By the way, someone said to me in a gym the other day, they said, "Oh, I saw you on YouTube. You're in like one of the top 10 or top whatever best improvised scenes," which is Jim and Jeff. I think when the most annoying sound, all that stuff. I said, "Oh yeah, well that's all them." They said, but I don't know if whoever was the narrator or someone said that I was really irritated at them or something, annoyed or something like that. I said, "Is that what you got?" I said, "Boy, I got to correct that somehow." No, I think what I had said, I hope that it came out that way. No, with Jeff and Jim, their characters, and I was playing that, but people laugh because there's about 10 things they do that people who know me for years would drive me up a wall. Okay, I got your back, or this and that. So I had one way to go: either laugh my ass off, or start biting my lip and try to think of terrible things because they would, screaming in my ear, all this stuff that would make me, I have this hyper hearing, and they thought that was funny. So I hope, I don't know if that's true. I'd like to, now I'm going to watch the scene and hear someone say, because it wasn't like I was annoyed at Jim and Jeff by any means.
No, absolutely not.
Every day was a treat with them. It's so funny because people would laugh. They'd say, "Oh God, I can't imagine what he was like then," because all that stuff drives him up a wall. But I just used it, when someone, the acting methods, you say, use it. You're
That's
upset
right.
about this, use it.
That's right.
Use it in the scene.
That's right, for sure. So, all right, I know that we're coming up here on the, I don't know, hour and 20 minute. I don't even know. I don't even care. The people don't care, but I do want to get to the meat and potatoes of their insights, your motivation. I know there are a lot of actors in Hollywood. I know a lot of people come here from all around the world to try to make it. You started out in '78, first role, correct me if I'm wrong, but Hawaii Five-0 from '78, and here you are now. You're still, Mr. Mercedes, you're still doing. I saw you on Billions, first season.
I had worked with those guys' first film. I think they were knockaround guys.
I love it.
So they remembered me. I think that was Vin Diesel's first film.
So you're rock and rolling. You're still kicking ass. So let me ask you.
It's all cycles, as my friend Mike Haggerty says.
For sure, but you're still standing. You're still well known. You're still getting roles. Okay, so for people out there who are stuck in Hollywood, who are trying to make it themselves, or who are thinking about becoming a Hollywood actor or writer or producer, what can you give to them? What piece of advice can you give them to help them out to weather the storms or the ups and downs?
That's interesting. They say keep moving.
Yeah, keep moving, for sure.
No, I'd love to, a lot of times now with this, look at this world here, I tell people to make their own films. One of the advice I gave to people is that go whatever city you live in, if it's New York or NYU, out here with SC, or actually we're in Orange County now, Chapman.
Yes,
it's one of the top film
that's right.
schools.
That's right.
I say get in there, especially if you're not 20 years old or whatever. Chances are people want to make a film and they don't have anyone like you, like those
right.
input. So I would tell them, try to do whatever independent films you can do, but like do shorts, do anything, because those are three-pronged. Sounds like a Monty Python bit, but it's one. Spanish Inquisition. Nobody expects threefold, fourfold, five. But I would tell them, first of all, the experience of being comfortable on camera, the challenge of getting a part you may not get for the next 10 years. I mean, the chance to stretch like that, maybe. But also, big thing, I mean, you look at all these people, Spike Lee, the Coenbergs, all these people. Can you imagine knowing them when they were 15 or 20 or 22 or in at NYU or SC, wherever people go? Now you're in with them, and you do a really good job. I don't mean kiss ass,
Right.
but maybe 3 years later, 4 years later, these are the filmmakers.
Yes.
And you've just worked with these gifted, hardworking people that are, pioneers and forward thinkers and really highly trained,
Yes. Yes.
And that's one of the things I recommend. Also, the game has changed. When I did it, it was, went out, I was just told, get in a showcase theater. And then the cliche was, oh, LA, they don't care about theater. I don't know about that by any means, but the thing was in New York, if you got in something really good, I mean, look, Dan Lauria got me involved in this play, Vesper's Eve. Wow, all of a sudden, it was like 40 seats in the theater, American Theater of Actors. It was an old court building or something up on 8th and 53rd, 54th. Well, people came because people were starting to talk, or they knew the director, this and boy, people were starting to talk about it. So, and we would do shows on the off day for Broadway shows. We do special shows. All of a sudden, there's people watching us and they want to know.
Yeah.
So if you're getting something really good, I'm not for the sake of doing it, but I think there is something sometimes that I worked on this film Bereaved. My friends Vangelos and George wound up. He won Best Director at the Hoboken Film Festival out in New York, and I got honored by them. But Malcolm McDowell was the lead, Jane Seymour, Keith Carradine, and I had a decent role. But I think, we did it for I hate to say no money. I mean, because it wasn't anyone being cheap. They just got this together and were barely able to get it. But I did it because it was a good role and with good people.
That's right.
And now, getting Malcolm just treats me like old James. Keith is. I learned some things from Keith Carradine. You always learn.
Yes.
And even I don't care if someone's 15 years old, 20 years old. I don't have this whole thing about how's this kid going to talk to me.
Right.
No. But the funny thing is now I have this strong relationship with Vangelos and George, and they're fascinating guys. They even have a boxing gym, and they've taken people off the streets who are now doing quite well, changed their lives, and they teach me a little here and there. But I did this film. Ken Lee, who's a big manager, he was mentioned on the Emmys for Mrs. Maisel, but he was with Maisie, Innovative Artists in New York, and he was always forward thinking. He says, I read this script, and God knows it, and I'm not being facetious. When sometimes you have SAG allows these films done ultra low budget. They go, it could be $100 a day you get,
yes.
Or maybe you get points or the back end. But
right,
the thing is, in the hopes that it's like some of these horror movies. Also, wow, they go through the roof. And,
that's right.
But to do quality stuff, you do everything you can. I'm not saying other things aren't quality, but if you really get to do something, because
be selective.
Yeah, but also there's something about I'm trying not to say cliche terms, but they say honing your craft.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, That was the thing about New York. You just kept doing theater, and hopefully getting seen, but always working it out. That's what a lot of these workshops were like. But I prefer, I mean, I respect classes, workshops, but I prefer that wanting to be in front of people or in front of cameras where it's for the money. You know what I mean? Like, you know what I mean? It's like the pressure of that, and also we're trying to create something. So my friend Brian, he had a student at Delphi University. These guys came up with a really good idea. They did a thing on love and relationships, and it was 6 short films. And I played an ex-coach who was closeted.
Yeah.
I went on a cycle of playing like closeted mob, Irish mob guys. Ed Burns had me do something, just someone. I go through these cycles. The bad guy, or the good guy turns out to be the bad guy. The bad guy the guy you think is the bad guy, but he isn't. He's just reformed now. And CSI I did. No, I wasn't the killer, But I wouldn't normally get asked to do that. And the fabulous actor, he was on Boardwalk Empire. He played had been a former player, and he wants me to come out of the closet, and I'll end up not. But there was all the beautiful scenes this kid wrote and directed. Finally, someone saw it and said, "Hey, I saw you do." I said, "What?" And one of the agents said, "Oh yeah, I saw that. I want to tell. I'm telling that it is. And never seen you do that. You know what I mean?" Wow. So you try to. That's where you get the chance. You know what I mean? That's what doing showcase. Now out here, people do it. Out in LA, I should say out here, but. The term Hollywood, I'm not saying you're saying anything wrong by any means. We always had the attitude in New York, like, oh, you want to, that whole Sinatra song, make it. My friend Smitty got us, so he was the best boy and a generator man. He kept saying, "Mark, you got to make it here," and always supported me and introduced me to everybody. But you get that rep of the guy in New York, and then in the 80s, Chicago and Mammoth came out their own world, and people like Joe Mantegna, they didn't have to do New York theaters. I think a lot of times, I'm not saying don't come out to LA, but the world's changed so much. Sometimes the place to be is in New York now, New York City.
Right, and the fact that you have technology now, like you said, make your own movie.
Make your own movie.
Like we're doing this podcast on it's going to have hell of a quality, the best 4K video, and it's on my iPhone.
Yeah.
Right, so if I was an actor, I would be writing my own movies. I mean, I'm not an actor, but I would say if I was, and starting out, I would probably write my own movies, my own shorts, right? Because then you generate a reel,
especially,
right?
I mean, it's changing now ethnically, where more people are getting opportunities, or like you you see commercials now, and wow, we have mixed couples, all that.
Right, exactly.
I was at the Hoboken Festival, and this couple came up to me, and they were they're talking to me. They were telling me what commercial. They said, "Hey, you know where we met? We were the what do they call it? Non-determined ethnic group couple or something."
Yeah. I love that.
was laughing so hard, Trace. But seriously about that, where if you look at things, of course, obviously very specific types, but even African Americans all the time, you didn't, it was a certain tone and color, you know what I mean? If you look at the history of it, the way things are.
If you were too black,
they
would be on,
Yeah, and what's the lighting? I don't know how to do this, or makeup, whatever, So, and people, plan has changed that, but what I'm saying is, like, I would talk to people and say, wait a second, chances are, and I mean, it's changed now, of course, but chances are that you may not get the same opportunity as someone else. I hate to tell you, you got to write your own story.
That's right.
And then the right person sees it. I know it's very difficult, but it's a lot easier nowadays. I remember when I went to Hofstra University, we had a small film department, and I got the greatest idea. It's going to be this thing, and all football players. It's going to be almost like a Marx Bros. And we're going to have 80 people in one. I'll get the whole football, blah, 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 and it'll take about an hour and a half. They said, "Really? We have Super 8 and 16 millimeter with no sound."
Wow.
So you watch the movies that were being made in college in the early 70s. Everyone, I mean, it was ridiculous. Someone smoking pot, and they'd have a young woman eating a banana, and and then close up.
No sound.
Say, what? I don't get it, and they smoke pot. And then this was a woman director I knew was making it, and I said, okay, and then everyone's stoned, and there's Super 8. It's like people decide they're going to make a documentary, which is valuable to do. But I was sitting in on a friend's film class. And he said, "Oh, let me tell you."
Oh, for sure. Oh, if you got an ad for it.
No.
Okay.
I don't know what that is. Oh God, it's my wife, the doctor. Hey.
Oh, do it.
Hey.
I love
I'm
this.
sitting in the middle of a podcast. Where are you? Hello. I'm sitting at Snooze. I'm just gonna head out soon. But you need me now? You want to come by here and pick me up? What are you doing? Sure. Where you headed? Oh, okay. Because he'll take me home. I don't want you to have to come all the way over here.
Yeah, I got him.
Yeah, my friend. Who I met through Charles. Yeah, we're doing a podcast actually right now. They're filming me.
Yes.
Is that okay? Yeah. Unless you want to go somewhere. You sure? Okay. All right. Yeah, it'll be a little bit long. Almost finished. I think I'm up to giving advice now to young people. What's that? You're not what? My wife just said I'm not supposed to be on the phone. Get off it. All right. Bye-bye.
I love it. Tell her I said hello.
Hello. Character.
Oh.
I forgot I had it on. Let me.
Oh no, it's fine.
just want to
I'm
know.
glad she called because she just reminded me of something that I wanted to say congratulations to you on earlier, which is your anniversary, which is tomorrow.
No, it's the anniversary of us meeting. The
Oh,
10th is
you're-
our anniversary.
okay.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
So
Gotcha.
anyway, in the theater, yeah, musician. People would say to me, "Oh,
Oh,
you were
Super
smart. You
8,
married
the
a
girl
heart
that
surgeon." No, but
smoking-
then people would say to me, "You married
Yeah.
a heart surgeon." That was smart. I said, "No, I met a musical dropped out of school. Went back to school."
In her 30s, which I love.
Yeah.
This is okay,
So,
okay.
yeah, but I'm saying that we didn't, now you can get someone. I always just pitched an indie film I got to hear about. They're really good, but I don't even know how much money they have. And I'm looking at it, and I'd be the nasty old cynical detective, and they're all like their 20s and
Yeah.
early 30s. Which is cool. I like doing that. You know what's interesting about doing some relatively low budget films? Sometimes you work with a crew of all people that wanted to be filmmakers. I'm not saying they're not going to be.
You get hungry
But
people.
yeah, not only hungry, but you get, not that New York, I'll tell you, Albert Finney used to say he loved working in New York because the Grip, Electric, they really felt they were part of it, which they are part of the film, but really had worked with some of the best and had high standards. What I like about being with young people, not only hungry, but there's a great, vibrant energy. It's not like, oh,
That's
what
right.
are we shooting today?
That's right.
You know, that feeling, they do takeoffs on shows,
Totally.
you get like, this, all of a sudden I'll have just the way you're talking to me, okay? So I'll have someone do electric, it could be a cinematographer, it could be anything. Oh my God, I was a kid when you did this, and it's like, we love them. And sometimes a producer or a writer producer will say to me, I might say, geez, they're not talking. I said, they're afraid to talk. They said, what? Or something like that. Or I've had people come up to me at the end of a shoot and say, normally actors don't talk to me. Or I said, well, we don't have much time on this planet. I want to know what else is going on. It's just the way I am. I like to, if it's distract, I respect people who are shy. I don't mean like, everyone's got to be like, hey, how's everybody today?
Exactly.
Or entertainer, this and that. But also, and sometimes certain really famous people have to be careful because they leave an opening to someone. Person goes in and wants to take. So I understand.
And then that's
where they,
looked at as arrogant.
defend themselves. Yeah. No,
I feel
but
like that is.
some of the people really might lose perspective, I think, about themselves, reacting. I love when Bruce Springsteen, I think, said to his kids, he was giving a talk somewhere, I think, my friend told me that Bruce Springsteen said, it's just a matter of timing. 100 years ago, I'd be sitting on the back begging for money on the back of a wagon,
That's an interesting perspective.
Musician, yeah.
Totally.
Totally. My friend Brian told me that in the gold rush, actors used to go out to San Francisco, and these miners that were lucky that found gold used to throw chunks of gold on the stage. Yeah.
Wow.
So
I love that.
It's all, you can't take yourself too serious. I mean, it's great. It's great making money, but to try to give advice, I try to be very careful because I remember one time I'd be very careful not to be cliched or glib,
Yeah.
because I'll
Somebody tried giving you advice when you were.
well, I asked him. Someone just said, yeah.
Yeah.
Just get in a showcase. I'll never forget. I finally got my first commercial, and I didn't lord it over him, but the guy would see me. I was working at the Health Spa gym, and he would kind of have an attitude. And I don't want to knock the guy. Maybe he just was tired of people calling, but I'll never forget he showed up and he was one of the extras on my first commercial. He goes, "What are you doing here?" I said, "I'm the guy." Oh, what are you doing here? Well, I'm doing that shorts. Okay, and I didn't go like, something like that. But
Scoreboard.
it was a director told me, Michael Giacomo, I think he's working with a really interesting, unique guy. And he worked at one of the places on the Upper West Side by Lincoln Center. And he said this one actor was so rude and brutal to him. I don't know who the actor was. I don't think he was doing anything. And then Michael got his first film, was directing, and the guy had to come in and audition for him.
Wow.
It's like, and I'm not saying you do it for that reason, but
that's why you don't be an ass to people, because you just never know, right? You gotta just be cool, right?
I mean, just for the sake of being cool. I mean,
Right.
not so, hope this guy likes me someday, or hope
Totally.
a lot of times my big thrill is someone says, I was a PA on such and such. And they say, you were so nice to us. I got a job, a big job, the one with Ed Burns. Paulie, this guy. I had been turning it down for some reason because I thought they were going to do some really harsh stuff. The one where I played the mobster's closet. It turned out to be a great thing, but he called up my man and said, how many bologna sandwiches is it going to take for Mike Starr to do this? Well, I worked on this movie in 1992 with Dustin Hoffman, Billy Bathgate. And all the Teamsters and crew guys who were from New York would say, Mikey, you got to bring me this. I used to bring bagels, Italian vegetables. Said, no, you got to bring me bologna and salami from New York, or this and that. One of the other
White
famous ones,
Castle.
Krause.
Yeah.
Oh, I've done that, but that's
Right.
hard. That doesn't trap well.
No,
But that mentality, yeah.
Totally.
And I think that originated in Cincinnati, and I think Chicago. But yeah, that was a huge
Right.
thing people want to do. I remember. Oh God, bring him down. We put it all in the basement. The 16-year-olds. I think I brought back like 100 one night when I was in Manhattan with my friend Charlie Limo. We just brought in all. Oh God, that basement. But and then I remember watching the Buster Douglas fight.
When he knocked out Tyson?
Yeah, Freddie Fineman, my friend Smitty. Freddie owned the candy store in the neighborhood in the Bronx when my wife was going to med school. We had this whole thing. We were finding White Castles in the living room for about, I don't know how long. So all the people came in, and Fred Esther, we were watching the fights. But back then, I don't know how I get into these
Well, we were
crazy
talking
things about advice.
And you said bologna, right? People were saying
Yeah, so I bring bologna, and so they started calling me Mikey Bologna on the set, Mike Bologna. And my manager said, what does this mean about bologna? So I said, you're kidding. And that guy, Paulie, oh God, did he take care of me? I wound up staying in his apartment in the city. And
so you were cool. You were cool, and you would bring people bologna.
Yeah, I do things, it was funny. On the Natural, there were a few fellas, Caleb Dishnell, the great cinematographer. Well, his crew, I got to be friends with Alan Disler, one of the most famous ACs now, and Bobby Brown, whose dad was a big count, but Bobby was the AC, and they said they're living in California, and Alan said, I just miss Yoo-Hoos. Now Yogi Berra came out with this drink,
Oh,
and
the
I mentioned
chocolate.
the chocolate drink, and they came out strawberry one. Some of the California people said, what's the big deal about it?
Yep.
But I brought up cases of Yoo-Hoos one time from Queens up to Buffalo, and
We have 20% battery remaining.
good. So we got like 5 minutes.
Yep.
So anyway, back to advice, for people. A lot of times, you have to keep working at it, but be multifaceted, I'd say.
Yes.
Right. Learn everything you can. Joe Ragno, an actor from the Actors Studio, great, and we did a few plays together, and he got me involved with some shows down there at St. Clements Theater, and he had said to me, Mike, I was just kind of starting out doing a small part. He was brilliant in this View from the Bridge. We were doing regional theater up in Connecticut, and he said to me, you don't get work and then get ready. You get ready and then you get the work.
That's right.
So you want to be prepared when that time comes, And the thing is, so I don't knock classes by any means.
Right.
There's some brilliant teachers out there with Sandra down here is great, and I've visited a class. But I say try to do as much as you can. And it isn't always necessarily the answer to come to LA.
For sure.
There's other cities now that are getting a lot of film work, so sometimes you get a chance to be the local actor.
That's right.
There,
That's right. The big fish in a small pond. So
to a degree, or small fish in a small pond.
Well, there you go.
But,
That's right.
You start getting work that way.
That's completely right. I can't believe that we're closing out, but I don't want it to end prematurely and we haven't done our closeout. So we're going to start closing this out, but I want to ask you a quick question.
Come back some more.
Oh, I appreciate it. In fact, yes. And what we'll do is we'll do 2.0, right? And then maybe you can come along with me.
So that's what that means. I never knew what touch 2.0 meant.
Yeah, it's like a second version, right?
I'm so out of touch. I never ask people.
You and me both. Trust me. I was born in the 70s, so I'm right there with you. But maybe when we come back and do him, and then
Sure.
maybe you can come along with that, right?
That'd be great.
I would love for you to join us. But before I let you go, thank you very much for your time. Right? I mean,
pleasure.
I'm probably not even going to be able to go to sleep for the next couple of nights because I just got done meeting you. It hasn't even hit me yet. But I know that you know about Rumor Resume.
Yes.
So we're allowing renters and roommates and landlords to build a renting resume. Do you think that's a good idea?
Genius.
Oh, I didn't even pay him for that. I love that.
No, that's the truth.
Thank you, my friend.
How much does that help?
Right, and that's what we're
Well,
trying to do, clean up the renting world.
I've gone throughout renting and buying, throughout our years. Sometimes, hey, an actor who's going to give me credit.
Yeah.
And I've had great experiences, and some maybe not the best,
For sure.
this and that. And it's good to know. It's also, I've had friends that have had to rent out to people, and it'd be good to know.
Right, who you're getting,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And above and beyond their wake and their past, their renting history, we want to become so commonplace that when you move into a place, right, or you've got a new renter or whatever, a roommate to roommate, landlord to tenant, tenant to landlord, whenever those people come together, if you know you're going to want to get a renting review from them, you're going to be on your best behavior. So that's what we're trying to do is, just like when you go into an Uber or Lyft, both people are getting reviewed, the driver as well as the
that's
passenger.
a brilliant idea.
Right, so if you know you can't act up in the Uber or Lyft because you're not going to get good reviews, which means nobody's going to pick you up, you'll be like a black guy in New York trying to hail a cab in the 80s, right? They're not going to come get you, right? So that's what we're trying to do with the renting resume aspect is clean up the renting world so that not only can you bring your renting resumes in, not only can you look at other people's renting resumes in, but now when you're going into a new place, you're going to be on your best behavior because you want to get a review. Oh, one more quick thing. People can't randomly review you. Like, on Yelp, you can just go and give...
Yeah.
You can't go and give... Like, if you were my landlord, I can't go on and say Mike Starr was a piece of crap landlord. You have to ask me to give you a review.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yes, because I don't want all that minutia. He said, she said. Look at LinkedIn. You go on LinkedIn, there's nobody saying there, Rick Saunders sucks, we fired him, or I don't go into, XYZ company saying they suck because that CEO is nefarious or criminal.
That's what I always wondered about. There would be places, low budget places, if might be traveling. I always wondered, like, they'd give reviews on, I can't think of, they'd say give a review to me, and I'd say something nice.
Sure.
But what was stopping someone from saying, oh, the place was filthy, the hotel's not comfortable?
And that's why
Yeah.
I won't allow anybody to review.
That's what I'm saying,
Because if you think you're going to get a bad review, are you going to ask that person to give a review? Right? And so that's the whole deal is like, it's that positiveness. Look, people are going to have bad issues. You might be oil, they might be water, it might not work out, right? So why focus on those bad reviews or those bad experiences? When when anybody goes to apply for a job, do you talk about the places that you got fired? No. Do you talk about the companies that suck because they're nefarious or criminal? No, you lead with your best foot.
Sure.
And then it's that particular HR person who's doing the hiring to get all that information and make an informed decision. That's the same thing we're doing with renting, right? So I appreciate that. My man, this has been an incredible ride. Like I said, when I'm driving home, I'm just going to be going, do you realize who you just got done interviewing? So thank you.
An interesting point. And I knew people that were up for it when I got the movie The Bodyguard, and there were some wonderful people up for the same role. I had a friend who was in it. And Jim Wilson, who was producer with Kevin Costner, came up to me and said, so you know that there's such and such, there were different people. I said, yeah. He said, I just want you to know, because I had done Mad Dog Glory with Robert De Niro and Bill Murray, and Steve Jones was producing with James, the director, I think. But they were kind of co-directs. They had done Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer. But we did Mad Dog and Glory. So anyway, Jim said, he never told me who it was, if it was De Niro or this director. He said, we checked on you.
I love that.
In Chicago. And they said the coolest, nicest things about you, not only about acting, but your behavior on the set.
Yes.
And we said we got to go with him.
Yes, and see my friend.
Well, it was nice when something,
right?
Just for the sake of doing the right thing pays off, you know?
And a lot of people, not a lot of people, everybody that I interview, right, they all say the same thing no matter who they are, whatever vertical in, whatever they do, they all say, as I ask, well, how did you get here? They say, you gotta just be cool.
That's interesting, because
right?
my friend,
Don't be an ass.
Coach Barry, I'll probably get it wrong, but I'll ask about certain players, and there's certain stars that people put up with. He said, until your talent, your trouble outweighs your talent or something like that, in other words, they'll put up with anything.
That's right.
Until the trouble just outweighs.
That's right. That's right.
I know stunt people that they may not have been considered the greatest Eddie's friend, but people loved having him on the set. He did a good job.
Yeah.
But he was also easy to work with and great to be around.
So
you want that good energy,
Yes, exactly. So ladies and gentlemen, if you're a roommate, renter, or landlord, and if you're just a standard human being, whether you're at work, no matter what you're doing, just be cool. Open doors up for people. Let them in on a lane. We were on our way here and we let somebody in on our lane, right? I mean, it's like, just be cool no matter where you're at and enjoy life. And you said something that hit home with me earlier, because I look at my life the same way. Your time here is limited on Earth.
Yeah.
You don't know when the last breath's going to be, so be cool, enjoy your time here. And my friend, we're going to close this up. But Mike,
God bless.
God bless you, and thank you, my friend.
Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Of course.
Patiently with my
No, there's no
my
patience.
circular stories.
Trust me, if my camera could go another 2 hours.
I got about 20 hours more just of
we're coming back.
86 or something.
We're going to do this again, trust me.
1992.
Because I want to talk to you about obviously working with Ray Liotta, Joe Pesci, right? That whole Robert De Niro.
Absolutely. Oh, dude.
Right. I mean,
Greatest.
trust me, I've done my work on you, my friend. So we got to
And
watch.
even now with Stephen King, all the great people on it, and like Brendan Gleeson, the Irish actor, who just was super kind, and Jack Bender, the director, who had directed so many things like Lost, is director on Sopranos, Led Ship. He just, you just keep learning. And then Harry Treadway from Penny Dreadful. Him telling me, I was 8 years old, my mother was in love with Kevin Costner, whatever, and I built The Bodyguard. I said, boy, that puts me in perspective. I think 1996 was like a few years ago, which is okay. Keeps me relatively young.
For sure, I'm right there with you. But man, this has been such a treat. I don't even know how to close this out, because this is like a very unique treat for me.
You know how to close it out? The advice, Smitty, who I just lost recently, was great. Been through a lot of things in his life. Cockney, and was great on the cruise and everything, and everyone loved having him around. Speaking of that, but he told me one day when I was starting, I says, my father used to tell me, it's like dropping pebbles in a pool. You keep meeting people. So that's one of the things. Get out there. Don't stay in your living room or your base, whatever cliches people tell. Get out there and do something. Meet people.
Yes, this is why I love you. You know why? So when we were talking on the phone yesterday, when I was going up to UCLA to film the 10 Weeks podcast. Anyways, we were talking about Bruce Lee.
Yeah.
I told you about like being water like water. He loves that quote. He says, "Be like you throw a pebble in a pond, it makes ripples. You don't have to be a boulder. You can just be a pebble and you can still make ripples, right?" I love you, Mike. Thank you, everybody. Thanks for watching. Yes, sir. Thanks for watching another
Believe
episode.
in yourself.
That's exactly right. Thanks for watching another episode of Ranting Quarters. I'm your host and pilot through these purple and blue skies. Actually, through these purple rose skies for Gene Wilder. Right?
Oh man, that's the best.
Right.
Now here's my Hollywood sunglasses.
Oh, I love it. As well as, and thank you for flying the Rumor Resume plane through these purple rose skies, as well as our co-pilot, right, Mike Starr with us.
I just wanted to be a co-pilot.
Right, and the co-pilot landed our plane very safely. Right, we landed the plane safely. We're about to exit here, but ladies and gentlemen, thank you, Mike Starr. We wish you all success. Peace. 137. Have a great summer, Mike. Thank you. God bless. Woo! That was sick. How do you think the podcast went?
Superb.
This guy was awesome.
I just talked too much.
No, he
as
talked.
usual.
I love it, guys. You're not going to want to miss this episode. We're going to upload it to our Ranting Quarters podcast as well as our YouTube Rumor Resume channel, July the 6th, I believe. But check it out, Ranting Quarters with Mike Starr, Rumor Rick, shooting a location at Snooze in Tustin. Thank you very much. Peace. 137. We wish you all success. And Mike, thank you.
I'm the guy.
Thank you. You're the guy. Thanks, guys. Love you.
Commandant.
Yeah.